Let's get into the bullpen now. As much as we've talked pitching throughout much of the offseason, it's focused on the rotation. But late last week, or excuse me, yeah, about late last week now, it was reported that the Dodgers were interested in Josh Hader. I don't know about you. This caught me by surprise in some sense. But also, Andrew Friedman has regularly said that he likes to be opportunistic with things. And honestly, Josh Hader could be an opportunity that is presenting itself to the Dodgers that was maybe unexpected. And so, in large part because of some of the financial flexibility that they have, thanks to Shohei Ohtani deferring so much of his salary. Tom Verducci said the Dodgers would potentially look to sign Josh Hader. He did also mention Yamamoto, who we covered earlier in this video. Blake, just your initial thoughts on Hader potentially being added to the bullpen.
It surprised me because Friedman isn't the type to pay relievers. That's usually more the less analytically inclined front offices that tend to do that. And he would also cost draft picks. And since they already signed Ohtani, who's going to cost some draft picks, they're going to end up trading more or losing more draft picks to sign Josh Hader. But there also hasn't been many teams connected to him. And like you said, with Andrew Friedman, it could be an opportunity where he sees the possibility of getting an elite player on a smaller contract than many would have projected. So I think it's something they're exploring. And maybe they also see it as an option to kind of shorten the games instead of getting another elite starter if they were to miss out on Yamamoto and not go out and get Dylan Cease or something. You add Hader and Evan Phillips at the back of your bullpen, and now you basically have 7-inning games, which kind of lessens the need for starting pitchers. It's been a strategy that the Royals used and kind of made popular, and other teams have tried it. And most of them haven't been as successful with it just because of how hard it actually is to build an elite bullpen. But it makes sense from that perspective as a fallback option if they do miss out on some of the top starting pitchers. So maybe you get Imanaga and Josh Hader instead of Yamamoto, and you're upgrading your pitching staff significantly. And although it's not your starting rotation, which is what they mostly need, you're still adding impact pieces that could help you in October.
Yeah, so you mentioned it. Hader's market this offseason is, basically been non-existent, at least publicly. And a few weeks ago, he's the best relief pitcher available. A few weeks ago, it was reported that the Orioles had some interest, but then they quickly pivoted and signed Craig Kimbrell. So yeah, so Hader is still out there, and as much as I think there was an expectation that he would get a contract similar to is Edwin Diaz, right? The Mets closer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get my Diaz's mixed up. That hasn't really that type of contract hasn't really materialized for Josh Hader. And like you and I both brought up, when it comes to Andrew Friedman, if there is kind of top end upper echelon talent on the market, whether trades or free agency, the Dodgers do at least sort of check in a little bit. And Hader, this year he went 2-3 with a 1.28 ERA, 33 saves and 38 opportunities. So the pedigree is there. I think if you dig a little bit deeper, there maybe are some concerns with, I don't know how strongly he has insisted on certain things with his usage, but I know there were reports out of San Diego that, he's basically only a ninth inning guy. So a closer, which from a closer standpoint, I think the Dodgers could slot him into their bullpen as much as Evan Phillips filled that role admirably this year. I think the Dodgers value him more in a fireman role. But also with Hader, he's not somebody who's going to go necessarily multiple innings. And so on one hand, that does limit the Dodgers a little bit in how they would utilize him. On the other hand, they have a deep bullpen. And if you look at their projected bullpen group as it is right now, like fitting Hader in is not necessarily easy with the current group. With their reported interest, do you think that there's maybe any concern internally for the Dodgers with Treinen's projection and what he might be able to contribute this year? Because he is another theoretical back-end relief pitcher, even though he is coming off a significant injury.
I think the hope of Treinen is don't expect anything, and whatever you get is a positive from him at this point. It's been basically 2 years, I think, since he last pitched, and the last time he was at the major league level, he threw 5 innings before getting hurt. So you just really can't count on him at all. If he comes back, great. If he doesn't, they're paying him $1 million. You kind of move on from that easily as the Dodgers. But with Hader, there's concerns about him. I think some of the specific roles he wanted might have been due to his pay and wanting to get that closer money instead of eighth inning money, even though teams value firemen as much as they do closers now. The arbitration projections and all that don't always see it that way. So I think if you're paying him well enough, he could be an eighth inning guy for you if you needed that, or kind of slot into that fireman role. But I don't think they'd sign him just as a closer. They'd probably pass on that after checking in and seeing what he actually wants. So that's just my take on it. We'll see what they actually do. I'd still be shocked if they get him though.
At what point would you think that, like, what kind of terms roughly, whether years or just general money, do you think it would need to be with Hader for it to, like, quote unquote make sense for the Dodgers?
That's tough for me to answer specifically because I don't like paying any reliever, and I think you
That's
know
right.
this.
That's right. That's right.
Um, what was Edwin Diaz's contract? Let me look it up real quick.
I think what is he, like 4 or 5 years? I mean,
I
I
think
don't
he got
see, so
5.
as you're looking that up, I'll add, like, and I could be wrong, obviously, but I don't see Hayward, excuse me, Hader getting that type of contract at this point, short of a team maybe becoming desperate and needing to sign a closer. But just the way his market has gone so far, like, I don't know if that's going to materialize for him.
So Edwin Diaz got 5 years, 102 million, which is essentially 20 million AAV. For what I would give Hader, I'd probably increase the AAV a bit to try and get him on a shorter term deal. So
Yeah.
maybe 375 or something around there, or even add an option after that to see how he does this year if he wants that potential opt out to reassess his market next season when he won't have the qualifying offer attached to him. So that's just my perspective on it. I still don't love the idea of paying relievers. As much as other people are going to disagree with this, I still think Evan Phillips, or not Evan Phillips, Alex Vesia and Caleb Ferguson are
Uh-oh.
essentially quality left-handed relievers. They have good stuff and they've put up results. Last year was kind of a roller coaster, specifically for Vesia, but a year before that, he was one of the best relievers they had, and arguably one of the best lefty relievers in baseball. And just with how volatile relievers are, I don't see why he couldn't get back to that point this year. So I personally just wouldn't pay the reliever. I'd go give that money to Yamamoto if that's what it takes to get it done. So that's how I see it.
It's a fair point. I agree. For me, I think 3 years is definitely the longest I would be interested in Hader. Ideally, 2 years. Perfect world, which I don't see. 1 year with maybe a high AAV, like you said, get him in with the Dodgers. Certainly more high profile environment than what he ended up having with the Padres because of their struggles. Maybe pitches well, doesn't have a qualifying offer and draft pick compensation attached to him, and yeah, maybe a year from now, there's potentially a better market for him. But for now, that's kind of where things stand. The Dodgers reportedly, according to Tom Verducci, would potentially look to sign Josh Hader, in part because of, like I said, the financial flexibility that they've been afforded by Shohei Ohtani deferring so much of his salary.